open up your Bible this morning. We're back in our study in the book of James. We're in James chapter 3 today. And really the title of the message is going to give away everything about the sermon today. If you only get the title, then you get it, okay? You understand really what this is all about. And for the next few weeks, we'll go into our Christmas messages. So this will be the last study in James until the new year. But the title of the message of this morning it's two words, really three. It's wisdom, or is it wisdom, right? Like you got two types of wisdom out there. You've got like wisdom with a crown, and you've got like, man, that's straight up dumb. Like you got wisdom, with the little devilish horns that come off of it. And isn't that the dynamic that we're living in our world around us, isn't it? That you've got your wisdom that comes from above, and then you've got your worldly wisdom that comes from below. And now to be a very clear indication that James gives us this morning in James chapter 3. It's all about wisdom, where it comes from, and really what I'm hoping is how you will be able to identify in your life the true source of the right type of wisdom. That's all. I want to give you three simple takeaways, three truths, three questions to ask of how do I find real wisdom in this world? Because I really know this, that there are voices that shape your life on a daily basis, whether you realize it or not. I got to thinking about just the things that we hear and the things that we watch, look at on a regular basis. Even if we removed, all of the TV and you kind of remove the radio and maybe even some of the other elements, we hear and see a lot of information and a lot of advertisements on a daily basis. I was looking at it, and they say we hear on average about 30,000 words a day. That's how many we hear, 30,000. And we see and hear about 4,000 to 10,000 advertisements each day. And so even advertisement companies are banking on this, that they're going to get your eye, they're going to catch your ear somehow, some way, and they pay big money for it, whether it's on the side of the freeway, okay, you got your Lamar billboards out there, and they're fighting for that space on the side of the freeway because they know they can influence you, they can get into your mind, they can work themselves into habits in your life just by you simply seeing something, like some grilled burger up on the side or, something sinful up there. They know that life is all about what you see, what you hear, and what you allow to take root up in your heart and in your mind. And because of that, I really believe that it's important for me and you to discern where we're getting our wisdom from. Like, where are we pulling the information from that we're relying on so much? And sadly, I think we often don't give it enough attention. I think what you hear and read will shape the way that you think and the way that you live. So my question for you is, what voice have you allowed to primarily shape your life? What is the biggest, the loudest voice that you have in your life right now? What are the voices that you listen to? Who do you go to for counsel? So every single one of us have those times in our life when we need counsel. We need information from somebody else. Like we can't figure it out. And so who are those people that you call? What are those voices that you go to just to get a little bit of insight? Whether it's a podcast or whether it's some type of YouTube guy, whether it's a family member, a spouse, a parent. Where do you go to get counsel for your heart and your life? What voice have you primarily based your life upon? I'm hoping today that it's from the right source, that you've been getting godly wisdom and not satanic or demonic wisdom. James makes it clear we've got two choices. It's either we look heaven or we look down below. It's either that we go, okay, God, I want your wisdom in my life, or we allow the world that we live in to shape us and even manipulate us in the wrong way. Are you there in James chapter 3? Look what he says about wisdom. I'll read it to you starting in verse 13. This is what he says about wisdom in our life. He says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom." Verse 14. "But if you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, Do not boast and lie against the truth. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, and demonic. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. But wisdom that's from above, verse 17. It's first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Stopping there. Wisdom. James, we just got done talking about the tongue a few weeks ago. Now James is saying, look, it's not just about, you just going through life on your own and thinking that, it's just you and God. But there are influences around you that you really need to be mindful of. And James gives us some really good, helpful truths about where to find the right type of wisdom. And my points this morning are simple. Number one, it's this, and we'll get right into it. The person that you listen to, the person that you go to, the counsel that you receive, does this person have a wise life, or do they just have some wise lips? Okay. Do they got a wise life, or do they just have some wise lips? Now, the reason why I say that is because as an employer, years ago, I had to hire a bunch of people that worked for me. We often look for two ingredients when you're hiring someone. You not only want competency, someone that can do the job, they understand it, but you also want another C. What is that C? Character. It's character. You've got competency and character. Those are the two ingredients that make a really good employee. You know that they can handle it mentally, but then you also know they've got the integrity to be able to uphold those truths and the values of that company. You want integrity. You want character. Someone that's true. They're going to be there. They're not going to steal from you. They've got both ingredients. Both need to be present. Now, the problem that we see today is that there's a lot of people who, it seems like they've got the competency. They've got some wise lips. Like, we live in a day and age of social media. And everywhere you look, you've got people that are trying to be an expert on something. You just do a quick Google search or YouTube search, and you will see, these influencers that are trying to own specific domains. Like, I've got a master class in fishing, or I've got a leadership course over here. And all of these people that are trying to, be the expert in a certain area, they've got these wise lips. But it's important that we not just listen to people, what they say. You got to consider the source, not what just they say. You got to think about, okay, I hear what you're saying, but let me look at your life a little bit. That's the good question. Because I have found that oftentimes the source of where that truth comes from doesn't match the sound that's coming off their lips. Now, you know this to be true, and the New Living Translation puts it this way, verse 13, look what it says in the New Living. It says, if you're wise and understand God's ways, prove it by living an honorable life, doing good works with the humility that comes from wisdom. So verse 13, he's simply saying, look, if you want to be wise, make sure that you've got a life that backs it up. The most, I would say, influential people in my life are those that I not only go to because they tell me smart things, but because I look at their life. And it kind of proves what they're telling me. Like, take a moment right now and think in your mind, who are the wisest people in your life? People that you really trust. People that you look at them and you go, man, it's them. Do they not have a life that has proven them to be a wise individual? And maybe if you don't know that person, okay, they don't have a wise life, they've not made, good decisions repeatedly, if they've not had a good track record where they've been consistent over a long period of time, it's time to get some new friends. Okay, it's time to get some new counsel in your life. That's not the best way to receive counsel or wisdom. It's from people that don't have a life that backs up what they say. James is saying, look, you can validate the information by their lifestyle. Now, this is very important because we're surrounded by information. I was back in California and I was talking to my little brother, and my little brother's a businessman, and he's done really well for himself, and walking with the Lord and still figuring things out, and he's lately been on this kick of listening to the most random books out there. And so he'll send me a text like, hey Jay, look at this new book I'm listening to, and I'm like, what the heck is this, man? Like, what is this trash that you're listening to? And I'm like, dude, John, let's work an agreement here. You won't listen to the book until you find out what the author is like. How about that? He's like, okay, well, why does that matter? I'm like, well, let's look at it, So he sent me this random book that he started listening to that he really liked, and we looked up the author and come to find out that author is like, just got this horrible crime history, and it's like, but bro, like, honestly, you got to consider the source. You got to really think about, where am I getting this information from? Who is it that's speaking into my ear? You can have a voice and a microphone, but that doesn't mean that we have to listen to you. Everybody has a voice, and everybody will have their opinion, but you don't have to base your life off of it, right? Because sadly, even Satan has a voice, and he has a microphone. Okay, so you have to discern, is this wisdom, or is this like wisdom? You know what I mean? Like this isn't good wisdom. I looked it up. Here's another Alabama saying. It's, you can pick a buttercup flower in a cow pasture, but you have to walk through cow patties to get them. Do you get it? You never heard that? Anybody ever heard that? That's because I made it up. I made it up. It's not even a good one, but I'm in Alabama now. I'm going to start making up these random, I've never even been in a cow pasture. Like, I just made this up. Yes, I'm like, what? I never heard that. That's California. Sometimes you can get truth from a bad source, but you shouldn't keep fishing in that pond, is my point. Somebody out there that's not walking with God might be able to repeat some type of truth. And I think all real truth is God's truth. And so even some of the most influential books that are out there, they're just stealing God's truth and making $1 off of it. Even some of the most secular books out there, they're, it's like, you just stole that from the Bible and you made, $1 million off of it. It's like, don't get credit. Give credit to God. But really, when we think about our life, we do need to be conscientious of the voices that we're allowing to speak into our ears. The people that are really shaping our lives, that are helping you be a type of business person or to help raise your children. There's a lot of voices, but we need to be careful in which ones we allow to take root and take primary place in our hearts. You shouldn't just focus on the sound until you consider the source. I was thinking, we've got plenty of people out there that will tell you their opinion, but they're like a armchair quarterback, right? That's one of the phrases that's often, or someone that's never won a game, but they're a professional coach. You've got overweight personal trainers and bankrupt financial advisors. I've talked to multi-divorced marriage counselors. I'm like, so you're the marriage counselor and you've had 4 divorces. Not taking your advice. Self-absorbed life coaches, WebMD doctors, if you know what that is, go online and type it in, go to WebMD, and you'll have like some rare disease, or YouTube contractors. Our problem right now in our world is we've got people who think they're an expert, but they don't have a life that matches the information that they share. As Christians, we need to sit back and say, what's the source? If I'm going to receive wisdom from you, I want to know, is this godly wisdom or is this satanic wisdom? Is this from above or is this from below? Verse 3 makes it very simple. People can prove their authenticity by having an honorable life that has been consistent throughout the years. It's a simple task that we can eliminate bad counsel from our life. If you claim to have wisdom and understanding, show it by your good behavior. It's a wise life, not just wise lips. Now, this is important for you to go get wisdom, but also if you're going to be a wise person, this is a check for me and you. Do you have a life that matches the truth that you share? Do people come to you? Like, I'm hoping that when I ask somebody who's the wise person in your life, that your name comes up. Wouldn't that be a blessing? If you were the wise person, but I tell you this, you continue to follow God, you continue to read your Bible, you continue to live before the Lord, and I guarantee you there'll be people that come to you for counsel. It wasn't long that I was a Christian that I started really reading my Bible and following God and honoring the Lord with my life, that some older men that weren't even walking with God would come to me, some little like punk 19-year-old, and ask me for counsel. And I'm like, why are you coming to me, man? Like, you've been married like all these years. Why are you coming to me? But they weren't coming to me. They were coming for God's wisdom. They were just recognizing the source. They were like, oh no, you got a life that's matching the information, and so I'm going to come to you. Listen, when people in your life, when the bottom falls out and they know that you really love God, and you've got a walk the walk, talk the talk type of lifestyle, they come to you. You know, like when your coworker that doesn't believe in God, when the bottom falls out in their life, do you know where they're going to go? They're going to go to you. They're going to ask you for prayer. They're going to come to you, even though they might ignore you right now and want nothing to do with you and pretend like, you don't know what you're talking about. Just wait for the storm to come in their life, and they're going to come to you. They're going to come get their wisdom from you. Because why? Because they know it's not just wise lips, but you got a wise life that backs that thing up. So that's James' main point, verse 13. But now James gives us another way that we can tell, is this good wisdom or is this not good wisdom? So the first thing is we look at the life, not just what the lips say. The second thing we look at is this. Does the wisdom that I'm hearing, does it produce envy in my heart or a big ego in my head? Let me say it again. The wisdom that I'm receiving, what I'm hearing from you, what I'm seeing in front of me, is it producing one of two things? Is it producing some type of envy in your heart? Or is it giving you a big head? Is it giving you an ego in your head? If it is, that is not the right type of wisdom. Look at the text. Look at verse 14, 15, and 16. And look at what James says about the wrong type of wisdom. He said, this is these two ingredients you do not want in wisdom. Verse 14, if you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, and demonic. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. So here's James' point. He's like, all right, so the first thing, you want to find some good wisdom, you look at the life. The second thing, you got to look at the ingredients. Now, I don't know about you, how well you eat. I'm basically like a garbage disposal. I'll eat anything, which, by the way, why is it that most people in Alabama do not have a garbage disposal? Like, how many of you have a garbage disposal at your house? That's my point. Like 4 of you. Like, why? In California, everybody has a garbage disposal. I mean, I'll put a 2x4 down that thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's a garbage disposal. Like, everything goes down. Like, Here, we buy our house, and they're like, oh, no, you can't have a garbage disposal. I'm like, what? What's wrong with you? Why not? And I'm like trying to install it, and they're like, no, your pipes can't handle it. And it's like, oh my gosh, whatever. Okay, well, back to my point is this. I'm basically a garbage disposal, but my wife, she's kind of like mindful of the things that she eats. And so her first response, generally when I bring home something from Walmart, is she grabs the bag and she turns it over and she looks at the ingredients, right? And she's looking at it. I'm like, what are you looking for? Like, there ain't nothing healthy in there. She's like, I know. That's why I'm not going to eat it. I'm like, all right, well, one of the things that gives her a headache is MSG, right? And so she's like monosodium glutamate or whatever it's called. And so she stays away. I'm like, but those chips are so delicious, like once on the lips, forever on the hips. And it's worth it, like I'll eat them. But not my wife. She checks the ingredients, all right? So she's looking at the ingredients. No, I'm not going to eat there. Here's 2 ingredients that James says these ingredients are not in godly wisdom. The 2 ingredients are very clearly envy and something to feed your ego. Those are the 2 ingredients that will not be found in godly wisdom. Here he goes on and he gives us where this ungodly wisdom comes from. And I've kind of already mentioned it with wisdom, D-U-M. James says there's a type of wisdom that doesn't descend from above, but rather it's here in this life. And it's really finding its origin in Satan himself. He says in verse 15, wisdom that is not from above is 3 things. It's earthly, it's sensual, and it's demonic. So all the wisdom that we have around us, all the information that we see, I would say the majority of it is earthly, sensual, and demonic in origin. That word earthly literally means, in the Greek, opposed to the heavenly. It means something outside of God. It's people that think only about this life. So the information you hear, the YouTubers that you watch, or what's on your Instagram, those individuals are thinking only about this life. Their boundaries don't consider eternity. And so it's people that have heaven outside of their mindset. They don't live with heaven in mind. Okay, so they're earthly. So this life is all that we have. They're sensual, which is a bad translation. That word is actually animalistic, is what it means. And so it basically means like they're animals. They think like a basic animal. They think about their own instincts. They think about what comes best to them. It means natural, not having the Spirit of God. So this is base, animalistic, sensual, what goes for their own appetites. And I think about what I hear today on the news, and it fits perfectly. They don't think about heaven, and they think whatever best fits you, whatever you need in the moment. Okay, like whatever's best for you, that's what you should do. That's the wisdom that you should go after. It's basic needs that are being taken care of. We know the phrases. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. That's the wisdom. Or even if we're trying to put people down, we will compare them to this animalistic thing. You're a dog, or he's a pig. Like we will actually use these phrases to say they're acting like an animal. And God is saying here in his text, like that's basic wisdom from the devil in the world around us as people act like just basic animals. That they're one-track mind, no heaven, and it's all about me and my instincts and my needs, right? And that's the wisdom that's prevalent. I got to take care of me. I got to look out for number one. It's about my needs before your needs. That's animalistic. And the third thing we find out that ultimately is demonic. James says that's not from above. That's earthly, sensual, or animalistic, and devilish. The only time that Greek word appears in the Bible is here, this devilish type mentality, and it means it's from its origin of hell. James traces all types of earthly wisdom, most of the things that you hear daily, he traces them back to the devil himself. He's saying, look, the devil's been whispering in your ears. Satan has been on a loudspeaker in your life. Most of the things that you've learned and most of the things that you hear and most of the things that you dwell on have found their source from Satan himself. They're devilish. We really need to pause and think for a moment, like, how much room have we allowed Satan to take up in our life? Like, if we were a car, most of the information that we've relied on has been from Satan. He's in the driver's seat. He's the one that's been directing our life. Like even your career, most likely, you got wisdom from somebody that was not godly wisdom. Probably some of the decisions you've made in your life, the people you've gotten into relationships with. Probably the things that you've invested in. I guarantee you, if we were to examine it somehow, that a lot of your life has been guided by the wrong type of wisdom. And what we're hearing is that it's got its source in Satan. And Satan would love to give you information, by the way. Like demons would love to give you counsel on your marriage. Satan would love to give you financial advice. He would love to direct you which path you should go. And just know that it's always against God. It's never what will benefit you, because James ends in verse 17 by saying this type of wisdom that you get, it ends in confusion. Look at verse 17. Like, oh man, you wonder why the world is so confused. It says this wisdom is, in verse 16, for where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. You want to know why the world's so confused? You want to know why they're a mess? And they're just so dark? It's because they've been listening to the wrong source of wisdom. Satan has been speaking and they've been listening. But now we know where it's from. It's got these three sources in it. But James now gives us, how do we recognize this type of false wisdom? So we know that it's demonic, it's sensual, it's animalistic. That's the wisdom of this world. But how do we recognize that wrong type of information? And that's when he tells us about the two ingredients. The two ingredients are envy and ego, or coveting and conceit. And look what he says here in verse 14. He says, but if you have bitter envy, verse 14, and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. Verse 16, but where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. All right, so here's a simple point for you. All earthly wisdom will produce envy in your heart and give you a big head. They'll give you a big ego. And we really have to think about the content of all the information that we get. Like, where does it come from? This word envy means jealousy, coveting, a desire to have, comparison. I would be better off if I had that. or I have to get it. So here's the devil's tactic. He's saying, look, you want some wisdom? Here's some wisdom. I've got something that you need. I know you're over there and you think that God is enough and God has given you all that you need, but he'll whisper something in your ear. No, what about that bigger house? What about that newer car? What about that nicer model? What about, these clothes? Or what about these? All of a sudden, envy enters in. What is one of the primary tactics that the devil uses in your life with wisdom is he goes after your greedy heart. He actually makes you think that you need more than what God has given you. Envy. It's very clear he's saying envy, bitter envy, which also, again, jealousy or coveting. So my question is, who are you watching? What are you looking at? What are you listening to? The things that you watch, let's just go to social media. We live in a visual society. It's pretty crazy, isn't it? And most of the things that you see on social media that you're constantly scrolling by, it's appealing and pulling something out of you. What is it? Envy. Isn't it all of a sudden you go to bed and you start thinking about, man, I want a nice vacation like that. Vacation to the Bahamas. Like, we deserve a vacation to the Bahamas. Come on, babe. Or all of a sudden you start seeing the new brands and the new clothes and the new lip plump and the new body and the new this. And it's serious. And it's like you look at all these things, you're like, oh, man. And Satan's at work. He's at work. He's putting these images in front of you and these thoughts beside you. And he's like, oh, I'm going to pull it out of you. Envy. You want that, don't you? You're coveting that. You're desiring that. You're going to go after that. That's the wisdom of this world. He's saying, don't do it. Notice this bad ingredient. If you get any wisdom from any person that involves envy, that you feel something in you, it's like, I need that, I desire that, that's bad wisdom. That's not something you should go after. So when we examine our hearts, you have to ask yourself, when you listen or read or go to somebody for counsel, you have to ask yourself, why are you going to that person? Why are you going to that source? Is it because you want the money, the status, the possessions, the fame, or even the life that they have? Why do you go to that source? If it's for any of those other reasons, it's not good wisdom. That's ungodly wisdom. When you know bad wisdom, I think it helps you stay out of the traps from the devil, especially, again, with our visual society. We're constantly after you, trying to convince that you need more. Kind of funny, so back in California, I heard a story about one of the guys that actually he gives to the church. So this is a guy that lives in California. He's a family friend. Him and his wife from California have been supporting Jesus City from the beginning. Well, just a few weeks ago, his Instagram got hacked. I don't know if you've ever had your Instagram or your Facebook hacked before, but this hacker came in, got a hold of his Instagram, and what this hacker started to do was they started to put out these little messages to all of his followers. And the first thing he posted, and I saw it come up, he posted a thing where it said, hey, look at my brand new Tesla. And so there was like this white Tesla, and I look at his feed, and I'm like, I didn't know that he got a new Tesla. That's not even nice. Why is he getting a new Tesla? I'm like, whatever, I don't even like it, whatever. So I see his Tesla, but all of a sudden I start seeing people comment. Now, this is a hacker over his account, so this is not really him. And so, I'm so excited for you. I'm so glad you got a new Tesla. A few days later, he posts like, hey, I'm excited about this new house that I just got. And so this hacker posted a picture of a new house. And I'm like, oh, that's a pretty nice house. Man, I didn't know he got a new house. That's pretty cool. Got a new house. And I commented, I fell for it. I'm like, hey, bro, cool house. I'm excited for you, man. He sends me an immediate message. Oh, yeah, I'm doing really good. Hey, you should follow. And he told me to go follow somebody that was like a cryptocurrency expert that was going to help me. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. But I ignore it. A few days later, there's a screenshot that shows up where it's like, look at the $30,000 profit I just made off of this. I'm like, what is going on? This is crazy. And I immediately was like, there's no way. This has to be hacked. This isn't right. So in conversation with this guy, in being hacked, it found out, this is what he found out, that some of his friends had fell for it so bad that they went online, they started following that hacker, and one of them, a guy, sent that person $3,000 in Zelly in trying to get what he was posting that he had. And so he sees the house, he sees the car, he sees the 30 grand profit, and all this hacker's like, hey, you can have this too, no problem at all. Just send me a little bit of money and I'll get it started for you. And what was being appealed to though? What was it? What was it? It was the greed. It was the envy. It was like, oh, you can have this. Oh, you should be getting this. And that's how it works. That's what the devil does. And people are falling for it left and right, just like this individual. And I think we as believers need to be mindful that Satan is after that greed and that envy and that jealousy and that covetous behavior in our hearts telling us that we need more. Now, why is this so devilish? Because really, coveting, when you want something else that someone else has, no matter what it is, what you're telling God is, God, what you've given to me is not enough. I need that. That's what you're telling God. You're saying, God, hey, I know that you've given me the health that I have, but that's not good enough. I want that. I know you've provided for me, put a roof over my head, but that's not enough because I want that. I know that you've blessed me in so many ways, but God, that's not enough. Creator of the universe, that's not enough. I need this over here. It's a direct affront to God himself. That's what envy is. And so here it's finding its source being demonic and devilish. So that's the first thing is your envy, but the second thing is your ego. Look at what it says in verse 13. Again, very, very interesting. He's saying self-seeking. I'm sorry, I said verse 13. It's verse 16. Where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. Verse 14, bitter envy and self-seeking. These are the two ingredients that Satan likes to use. So it's I need. The first thing is need. I need something. The second thing is your ego. It's yourself. The counsel today, and I don't know why it's so prevalent, but it is, it's very self-centered. Have you noticed? Like, just honestly, just go anywhere. Go online. Read any new book. Go on Amazon and find the newest self-help book, and it's all about you. It's about what you need, my needs. It's about I, self-care, self-love. Watch out for myself. Look out for myself because nobody else does. Like forget your opinion. It's about me. Like you start hearing the wisdom of today, it's everywhere, is that you need to look out for you because that's the right thing to do. And so it's all about self-seeking. And Satan behind it the whole time going, hey, it is about you. It's about you. It's about what you need. That's right. Take care of yourself before you take care of anybody else. Look out for number one. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and they're out there to get you. So make sure that you're paying attention to what you have. And that's exactly what James is saying is the wrong type of wisdom. This is not godly wisdom that you're looking out for yourself, but rather it's counterintuitive. This word self-seeking in the Greek literally means selfish ambition, ego. It means having a concern for one's welfare and interests before others. Here's three other ones: self-serving, self-obsessed, and self-absorbed. So here's the wisdom that we get in our world. You need this because you need it. That's why. You need to take care of you. And all of a sudden, we become self-absorbed about our life. All of a sudden, we become the sun and everybody else is revolving around us. Like you're in my solar system. You revolve around me. And all of a sudden, everything becomes narcissistic and about us. And everybody serves us. And everybody's about me. And that is devilish to its core. That is the very thing that Satan fell, right? And so he's just repeating his same folly over and over again. But this is even hidden again in the language that we read and hear on a regular basis. Forget everyone else. You focus on you because you deserve it. Satan's ingredients are, this is about you. This is something that you need. And John 2:16 says something very similar. What's in this world, he says, for all that is in the world is the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And it is not of the Father, but it is of the world. 1 John 2:16. So, with this in mind, how do we find true wisdom as we wrap this whole thing up? One is we look at the life, not just the lips. Two, we ask the question about the ingredients in this wisdom. I hear what you're telling me, but what I'm seeing is that you want me to desire more than what God has given me, and you want this whole thing to be about me. But that's not the Christian life. That's demonic wisdom, what you're telling me, and I'm not going to listen to you anymore. The real type of wisdom, point 3 this morning, is does this wisdom push me to look and live like Jesus? Real wisdom will push you to live more like Jesus, to look more like Jesus. That's real godly wisdom. Verse 17 and 18, I'll read it to you. This is what real wisdom looks like. Verse 17, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure, it's peaceable, it's gentle, it's willing to yield, it's full of mercy and good fruits. It's without partiality and without hypocrisy. Now, is that not the exact opposite of what we just thought about? Real wisdom from God that comes from above for your life that you crave the most. The direction and the insight and the counsel that you need to make decisions and plan your life and raise a family. That type of wisdom comes from one source. It comes from above. It comes from God. It comes from God's word. It comes from godly counsel around you. It comes from godly sources. But we need to be discerning enough to recognize it. Here are some of the ingredients that go into godly wisdom. The first thing he says is that godly wisdom is pure, number one. It's pure, which means it's clean. It's upright. It means without blemish in the Greek, this idea of pure. Which cancels out most of the stuff that we hear, right? You're like, man, that ain't pure. Okay, I shouldn't listen to that. I mean, think about the music you listen to, the things that you allow to go in your ears. Is it pure? You're like, man, I need to delete my entire playlist. Exactly. Is it pure? Is it peaceable? Do you listen to things? Do you receive the counsel that delights in peace and the promotion of peace? Where you're making peace with one another. Not only peace with God, but peace with others. Listening to the things that don't rile you up and get you frustrated and like you want to go out there and just like, just let somebody know how upset you are. But you're like, you know what, I'm trusting in the Lord. And the music you listen to will impact your heart and your life. You get up in the morning worshiping God, it'll impact how you work, at your job. It will. The things that you dwell on, the news that you listen to. Come on, get out of the news, man. Like, it's all bad news. It's all bad. I don't even know. Like, I've not had a TV. My wife and I, when we first got married, we said we will not have a TV. And for 16 years, actually 17 years now, 17 years, we've not had a TV. And people are like, well, how do you stay up to date with all the news? Who cares, right? Like, well, how do you watch football and how do you watch baseball? I'm like, I got a cell phone. I can see so I still got a cell phone. It's like basically a TV in my pocket. But nonetheless, I'm not wasting my life sitting in front of this thing and just filling my mind with junk, allowing my family to be consumed with trash. Where all of my time is gone. Like, well, how do you have time for each other? Well, you do have time. You just waste it in front of this screen. Like you go in most houses and like, oh, look at the beautiful fireplace and a TV. And it's like, why? Why is that the center of our home? Well, honestly, like, why is that one of the first things that we show people when we walk into each other's houses? Like, oh, check out my TV. Check how big it is and the size of it. Like, why? Why is that there? The things you hear. The things you listen to, the things you watch. Is it gentle? It goes on. It's gentle. Real wisdom is gentle. It's not combative or abrasive. It's reasonable. It's courteous. Real wisdom. It's willing to yield. Willing to yield. Now, the opposite, what we just read, was that it was envious and self-seeking. That's worldly wisdom. Demonic wisdom is that it's self-seeking. It's me first. Godly wisdom is I'm willing to yield. I'm willing to care for you more than I care for myself because that's what God's done to me. God so loved me, He sent His Son to die. He didn't look out for Himself there. Jesus willingly went to the cross. He loved me to death. And I'm following in His footsteps. So godly wisdom is I'm willing to yield. I'm willing to do things that don't seem reasonable. It's full of mercy. It's full of good fruits. It's without partiality. It doesn't show favoritism. It's without hypocrisy. It's sincere, it's genuine, and it doesn't put on a front. The godly wisdom in closing that we find only from the Lord, from up above, it's opposite of what you find in the world. So are you in a spot right now where you need counsel, you need wisdom? Then this is where you need to get it. You need to go to God's word. You need to go to godly people around you. The Bible makes it clear there's safety in the multitude of counselors. So you can go to godly counsel, but make sure that when you're listening to that it's the opposite of what you find in the world. It's counter to what you've always been told. Most godly wisdom will cost you something. Most of the time. It doesn't appeal to your flesh. It's something that upsets the demonic realm. Think about it. You're not listening to the demons any longer. When all of a sudden you start listening to godly wisdom, your life looks different. And you're no longer doing what everybody else is doing. So you'll get a little bit of pushback from people in your life. Like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you do that? Why would you be so generous? Why would you, serve in that way? Why would you take a less paying job and not take the promotion so you can invest in your family? Why would you do that? That doesn't make sense, because it's the godly thing to do, because this is more important. I know my boss is always thinking that he can replace me, but you know who never thinks they can replace me? My children. Like, they can never replace mom. They can never replace dad, but your boss will always replace you. Any day, they'll replace you. Like, quit caring about it. Like, you've got a family that they cannot deal without you. They cannot deal without you. And so you make your proper investments. It doesn't make sense, though. The world doesn't look at it that way, but we go off a different set of orders. We go off a different set of information. It's wisdom from above. It's not wisdom from below. It has no envy and no ego in it. It's not animalistic, but it's one that we say, I've been made in the image of the Creator, and I'm going to honor Him with my life. I'm going to listen to Him. I'm going to honor Him. And if it makes no sense to you, that's fine. But I'm going to listen to my Creator. Is it wisdom or is it wisdom?